Stand back up.
We agreed that extrapolation includes not just the science or technology it showcases, but also the consequences that ensue. When those extrapolations involve weapons, the consequences can be monumental, including social, commercial, biological, climatic, and even stellar catastrophe. Weapons are undeniably embedded in the narratives of science fiction. But hang on a minute, let's take a step back. What do we actually mean by the word weapon? We will certainly see a wide variety of weapons on this course, and the variety in science fiction as a genre is wider still. Soulless machines, cyborgs, chemical weapons, designer viruses, nanotechnologies, optics technologies, weapons of mass destruction, hacking, ballistics and other handheld devices that approximate guns or swords, and hidden prostheses. Science fiction weapons range from the enormous to the microscopic in scale. A reasonable working definition would include the idea of intent, either in its use, its development, or both. A precondition of intent to use in such a way as to cause harm must exist. Remember what David Bell said? That our response to technology seems to be split, polarized between technophilia on the one hand and technophobia on the other. It seems to me that technophilia is more the work of advertising, or the mad scientist obsessed with his invention, in love with the promise of what the invention might do. Technophobia, however, is by far the more prevalent message in science fiction stories. Can you think of any technological utopia in science fiction that doesn't collapse into its opposite? If we also consider that the goal of science fiction as a genre is to deliver critical commentary, in essence, some warning, some prophecy of possibly dire consequences that might ensue from the invention of a kind or a class of technologies, then the ubiquitous presence of weapons in science fiction is only logical. And where Brian Stableford argues that early science fiction was on a quest to find an appropriate narrative frame on which to drape its showcasing of science or technology, the narrative frame that he talks about, of course, being the journey of exploration, then it is also only logical that the weapon is a consonant, appropriate, recurring motif for that narrative frame. We might find that we are given very little information about the weapon's design in a specific story. We will have to fill this in. We will have to take it for granted. In other words, we will be speculating. Or we might find, as we do in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, that we are given quite a lot of detail about the operation, design, and mechanics. We should also consider the military contexts of research and development. In reality, as well as in fiction, developments in science or technology have often only been accomplished because of military funding. This includes at least 3 of the submarine designs we saw when considering Verne's technical knowledge in envisioning the Nautilus.
This guy is really good.
He's not a guy, he's a machine.
What are they gonna do, replace us?
Let's take a closer look at weapons in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We'll begin with the first and foremost obvious weapon, the Nautilus itself. At the beginning of the novel, the problem of intent is, as discussed last day, a gray area. Does Nemo mean to sink those ships? By the end of the novel, the issue of intent is clear. Nemo has vowed revenge on the Avenger and uses the Nautilus as a weapon. To equate the Nautilus, a weapon, with Nemo, its inventor and captain, is to suggest much. It suggests that he's a loose cannon, a lawless Ronin, a mad scientist figure all in one. Film adaptations clearly take this interpretation of his character on board. And we might just pause a moment to appreciate the ballistic-like rendering of the Nautilus in some of these adaptations. There is also plenty of exposition on the lethal accoutrements with which the Nautilus is fitted, including the electrified cable. Second, we have a realistic and extremely detailed account of Nemo's Laden gun. In Part 1, Chapter 14, Nemo explains the firing mechanism and cartridge of the Laden gun. I must be allowed some reservations with regard to the gun I am to carry, says Professor Aronnax. But it is not a gun for powder, answered the captain. Then it is an air gun. Doubtless. How would you have me manufacture gunpowder on board, without either saltpeter, sulfur, or charcoal? Besides, I added, to fire under water in a medium 855 times denser than the air, we must conquer very considerable resistance. That would be no difficulty, Nemo responds. There exist guns, according to Fulton, perfected in England by Philip Coles and Burley, in France by Furcy, and in Italy by Landi, which are furnished with a peculiar system of closing, which can fire under these conditions. But I repeat, having no powder, I use air under great pressure, which the pumps of the Nautilus furnish abundantly. But this air must be rapidly used. Well, have I not my Rouquayrol reservoir, which can furnish it at need? A tap is all that is required. Besides, Monsieur Aronnax, you must see yourself that during our submarine hunt, we can spend but little air and but few balls. But it seems to me that in this twilight and in the midst of this fluid, which is very dense compared with the atmosphere, shots could not go far, nor easily prove mortal. Sir, on the contrary, with this gun every blow is mortal, and however lightly the animal is touched, it falls as if struck by a thunderbolt. Why? Because the balls sent by this gun are not ordinary balls, but little cases of glass. These glass cases are covered with a case of steel, and weighted with a pellet of lead. They are real Leyden bottles, into which the electricity is forced to a very high tension. With the slightest shock they are discharged, and the animal, however strong it may be, falls dead. I must tell you that these cases are size number 4, and that the charge for an ordinary gun would be 10. I will argue no longer, I replied. I have nothing left me but to take my gun. At all events, I will go where you go. Captain Nemo then led me aft. Here, Verne has created something quite original, unique in science fiction, in fact. It's a hybrid device, part air gun, part Leyden jar. A rifle that is capable of delivering an electric charge. The gun that Verne envisions is actually quite similar to a modern taser gun, or probably more specifically, a modern taser-fitted shotgun.
Taser International brings you the Taser Extended Range Electronic Projectile, or XREP, a wireless projectile that fires from a 12-gauge shotgun. It delivers the same neuromuscular incapacitation, NMI, as our handheld Taser X26, but can be delivered to a distance of up to 100 feet. The XREP combines blunt impact with the field-proven Taser neuromuscular incapacitation that renders a violent offender virtually incapable of moving or harming others. The XREP is the most sophisticated...
Nemo and Aronnax use the Leyden gun for hunting rather than combat. It's not difficult to conceive of a mind like Nemo's as being capable of designing combat weapons, though. However, it must be admitted that in drawing this inference, we are engaging in speculation. Finally, we also have Ned's harpoon gun. There's nothing fancy about it. It's not an advanced technology. But Ned puts it to adroit use in hunting, in saving Nemo from the shark, and in trying to attack the Kraken. Does Ned ever consider using it against Nemo during one of his repeated escape plans? Again, we are in the territory of speculation. Where the high-tech weapon is often viewed with suspicion in science fiction, what is this deadly new invention? What destructive potential might it harness? The low-tech weapon is often used as a counterbalance. It is typically used either to defeat the high-tech weapon, witness Cecilia's use of paint or a hammer in Wanell's latest adaptation of The Invisible Man, or to remind us of the violence inherent in the human condition. From the earliest times, whatever we picked up, sticks, stones, stretching all the way through the present and into our future inventions, any of these things has or could be in the future used for harm in some way at some time. The violence already exists within us, and the weapon is its manifestation. In 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, should we then see Ned's low-tech harpoon as a counterbalance to Nemo's high-tech Leyden gun? Are we meant to see Ned, the reasonable Newfoundlander, versus Nemo, the crazed vigilante? Or is there, after all, something quite similar about the two characters, these men of decision, these men of action, these men who are ready to do what it takes whenever needed? Consider also that modern taser equivalents also make use of harpoon-like barbs. Let's conclude this consideration of weapons as a motif in science fiction by looking ahead to Isaac Asimov. Asimov will ask us to reconsider the notion that the technology itself is neutral, that it is us, the creators, who decide how it will be used, that it is us, the creators, who turn it into a weapon. As we'll see when we look at Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, a central question that adheres to AI is, can it be inherently bad? Can it turn itself into a weapon?